Hey, what's going on, Seminole Nation? Like I told you guys, we are in the midst of going over our preseason, post-fall camp positional breakdowns. We went over quarterbacks, running backs thus far. We're going to jump into the most important unit for this 2024 or 2025. I'm sorry. Definitely want to get 2024 out of my head, but this 2025 version of the FSU Seminoles, everything revolves around this position group, and that position group is the offensive line. So go ahead and jump into the preseason offensive line preview for the Florida State Seminoles. Before we get started, make sure you guys hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit the like button. It only takes 2 seconds. And if you're not a part of the Dope Talk community, go ahead and join it now. Like I said, we're covering pretty much every positional group leading to fall camp, and then we're going to have you covered with everything from fall camp leading up throughout the season. So go ahead and join the Dope Talk family, Note Nation. All right, guys. So as you guys know, last year's offensive line was, just to put it quite mildly, it was abysmal. Probably the worst, not probably, it was the worst offensive line I've seen in FSU history. We couldn't run block, we couldn't pass block, we couldn't even hike the ball in certain situations with throwing the ball over the quarterback head or hiking the ball prior to the quarterback being ready for the football to be snapped. Um, and that caused a lot of issues trickling down from quarterback play, running back play, receiver play, just everything all around. It wasn't good at all, and we had the worst offense in FSU history as a result of it. So to put it mildly, I don't think this unit at all can be, well, I don't think it can be worse than last year at all. Knock on wood. I don't think I can see anything worse than that. But I do think this unit is going to be vastly improved. We'll jump right into it. Now, I will preface this by saying I am very high on the starters for FSU. I think Coach Herb Hand, the new offensive line coach, did a hell of a job within the portal in regards to addressing current needs for the 2025 FSU Seminoles, and a few guys they brought in that could be some developmental depth pieces to kind of build this future offensive line. But for the 2025 version, I'm high on the five starters. Now, if someone gets hurt or anyone after the five starters, I'm not really too high on. I don't think we had great depth, the depth that we need at FSU to have how can I put this, a offensive line that's running on all cylinders, no matter if you have a guy or two injured. If you look at FSU offensive lines in past years, once some guys get injured, everything kind of went off the rails. I don't think it'd be this bad for the 2025, that bad rather for the 2025 version. But I do believe that Herb Hand hasn't had enough time to pretty much develop depth and things like that to be comfortable if someone goes down, at least for me personally. All right, I had to preface that, but we're going to go ahead and get into the names of the list that I feel like, or the names of the offensive line, rather, that I feel like would be big time players for FSU, and guys who I feel like still need some development, whatever that may be. I'm going to jump into the first name I want to talk about and discuss is Luke Petitbon, transfer center from Wake Forest, and at 6'2", 310 pounds. Played 38 games at Wake Forest with 22 career starts. Had an 89.4 pass blocking grade on PFF, which was first in the ACC, and it's only allowed 6 pressures this past year. Luke has been a welcome addition for FSU in regards to what he brings to the table. Was a big time player in spring. I know Coach Mike Norvell, Gus Malzahn, and Coach Herb Hand had glowing reviews in regards to his demand of the offense, leadership, and things like that. Um, to say the least, FSU, the center position for FSU has been an issue for the last few years. Just didn't get it done, especially last year. Kind of fell off the rails completely from just not being able to block, snap the ball, everything all together. So I feel like Luke Petitbon may be the most important transfer that transferred to FSU within the recruiting cycle, in my opinion. That's over quarterbacks, defensive line, receivers, just regardless of position. I think Luke Petitbon will be the most important piece for FSU as far as what they brought in for the transfer portal. A complete 180 night and day situation from the center position from last year to this year. Really excited what Luke can bring to the table. And he also brought leadership in the spring as well. And I do want to preface this as well, too. A lot of the starting offensive line that was one, I guess you could say, issue in spring practices, which the entire starting offensive line, all five, didn't really play together. We had some lingering injuries with a few guys that caused them to miss some portions of the spring practice. But I guess the good thing about that is we didn't have any serious injuries coming from spring practice that lingered over to fall ball. It's going to hamper the offensive line. Everyone is 100% healthy going into fall camp. Next person I want to discuss, Micah Pettus, standing at 6'7", 349 pounds. This is the right tackle transfer from Ole Miss. Played 33 games for the Ole Miss Rebels with 29 career starts. 29 career starts for Ole Miss, standing at 6'7", 349 pounds. You guys see what I'm getting into? Well, I'll kind of point it out in a second as far as the difference between last year and this year. But 6'7", 349 pounds. He's a mauler type of guy, physical, really a role great in the run game, excuse me, in the big body that's tough to get around in pass rush situations. Having 29 starts within the SEC. If you guys remember a few years ago, FSU took Justin Turntine, if I'm not mistaken, offensive tackle from South Carolina, really big body, around 6'8", 300 plus pounds, and he was productive for FSU. He was actually a decent offensive lineman because just from a sheer size standpoint, he was good in the run game, and it was just tough for offense, well, defenders rather, to get around his big frame and to put pressure on the quarterback. I think we kind of get a upgrade in Micah Pettus in regards to that position. Well, not necessarily in regards to that position, in regards to the comparison to turn time to Michael Pettis. Similarities, but I think Pettis has a little higher ceiling than what Turntime brought to the table for FSU. Moving on, another SEC transfer that FSU acquired for the transfer portal this past offseason, Gunnar Hansen, 6'5", 325, left tackle from Vanderbilt, excuse me. Had 35 career starts for Vanderbilt, 27 starts at left tackle, 4 stars at left guard, and 4 stars at right tackle. Very versatile player that can play pretty much everyone on the offensive line. He's going to be entrenched with being the left tackle for FSU for this upcoming season. He was the Outland and SEC Offensive Lineman of the Week when Vanderbilt played against Bama. As you guys know, Vanderbilt ended up beating the Alabama Crimson Tide, and Gunnar Hansen didn't give up a sack during that game. He was amazing against the Alabama Crimson Tide. Knock on wood, hopefully that's an omen that can be a good thing for FSU going to game one against the Crimson Tide. But again, big time player Gunnar Hansen. He won the SEC Offensive Lineman of the Week for that game. Didn't give up a sack. As you guys can see, it's been a trend with the players I've been naming so far, and that trend is experience. These guys have played a lot of football in the ACC, SEC. We're going to get into some other guys that's going to be playing for FSU as well. That, again, has a lot of experience. And the next guy I want to discuss is Richie Leonard. He was the starting left guard for FSU last year before having season-ending injury, a season-ending injury that kind of lingered on from fall camp. So we have Richard Leonard back in the fold, and even during the few games he played for FSU, he was the best offensive lineman on the team. He was pretty productive for FSU, even being hampered by the injury that ended up that ultimately caused him to miss the entire season. He's back, well, the remainder of the season. He's back healthy now in full swing, transferred from the University of Florida. Again, this is another guy that has multiple years of starting experience from the SEC, and of course the few games in the SEC in the ACC last year prior to being out for the injury. Last but not least, in regards to the offensive line, we have the right guard, the right guard position. Adrian Medley, 6'5", 309-pounder, transfer from UCF. Again, played under Coach Herb Hand. Gus Malzahn at UCF was real productive, was one of their better offensive linemen at UCF, has 19 career starts at right guard. So you have a right guard with 19 career starts. Richie Leonard, longtime starter at Florida, started at Florida State as well. Gunnar Hansen, 27 career starts in the SEC. Micah Pettus, 29 career starts in the SEC. And then you bring in Luke Petitbon, who I think is the most important of them all, 22 career starts in the ACC with Wake Forest. So you have a lot of guys with experience, proven experience in production at other places. You bring those guys in and mold them together. You have a guy like Herb Hand, who's a really good developer. Hopefully you can have some good things for FSU on the offensive line going into this year within the starters. literally night and day from last year. Four new starters, I guess you could say five in essence, because Richie Leonard missed, I want to say like 70 to 80% of the season last year. So pretty much you got an entire new starting unit, and that entire starting unit is healthy for one and have a lot of game experience, improving production um, in big time games. All right, guys, let's go to the a few names I want to speak about as far as backup offensive linemen for FSU. Again, these are guys that are going to come in and need to get developed and that type of deal. And also FSU, well, Coach Herb, I want to point these two guys out as well. He brought in two transfer offensive linemen within the spring portal window. These guys, so within the winter portal window, we kind of focus on the right now, right? We got to get guys in that can play football for FSU for the 2025 season. In the spring window, it was a few guys that entered the transfer portal, and it was a good thing for FSU in regards to the timing because they jumped right in on the recruitment. The first thing I want to discuss is Jaelyne Matthews. He was a four-star true freshman for the University of Rutgers. Ended up signing with Rutgers for the 2025 recruiting class. Went through spring practice with Rutgers. Ended up entering the transfer portal after spring practice. Worked out for FSU, ended up transferring to FSU. So he has 4 years to play, well, 5 years to play, four rather, with a possible red shirt. Sitting at 6'6", 350 pounds, a huge body offensive tackle. So I really like to get of Jaelyne Matthews out of the transfer portal. And also we have another guy who has 4 years of eligibility. Josh Raymond, 6'4", 300-pounder from Vanderbilt. He was a redshirt freshman, redshirted this past year for Vanderbilt, so he has 4 years of eligibility left to play football. He's from the Orlando area, so coming back home to the Sunshine State. So shout out to Josh Raymond and Jaelyne Matthews. Those two guys I feel like would be good depth pieces to develop for Herb Hand in regards to building his future offensive line. And one more thing, I do want to point out that Gunnar Hansen, he is from Florida and played football at St. Thomas Aquinas. So big time program down there in Fort Lauderdale, won a few state championships with those guys. All right, these two guys I feel like would be the first person off the bench, so to speak, in regards to the offensive line. Your sixth man, so to speak, in regards to your offensive line. If anybody is injured, I feel like these guys be the ones that jump in right now and kind of play, and they can play a multitude of positions as they did this past season for FSU. One is Jacob Rizy, 6'5", 310-pounder, redshirt senior. Remember, he ended up transferring from Harvard last year for FSU. Started 5 games last year. Started games at center in both guards positions. He missed spring practice due to being injured, but he's fully healthy now, and he brings a wealth of experience. I think he will be an okay swing piece for FSU if anything happens within the starters on the offensive line. The next one, Andre Otto, redshirt sophomore. I'm really high on this kid from a potential standpoint. 6'5", 330 pounds. He has the body type, right? He has the frame. Played in all 12 games for FSU for the 2024 season, along with 3 starts at right guard and right tackle as a redshirt freshman. It wasn't great last year, but it was a bright spot because he had time to develop. He was young. He showed some mistakes, of course, like majority guys as far as being a redshirt freshman, but he also showed some promise in certain situations. So I do like Andre Otto for a future piece of FSU. I think Herb Hand can develop him into a future starter for FSU, but as of now, he will be one of the key guys as far as being a backup for FSU in case any of the 5 starters go down. He'll be able to kind of come in and be a plug and play type of guy. All right, this is the last few names I want to discuss in regards to the offensive line. I'm not going to get into every name, just the guys who feel like, or the guys that are going to start, of course, your key backups, and guys that need to have pivotal seasons for FSU from a developed standpoint, just to reassure rather that they could be future piece for FSU for the future offensive line. And it's a few guys on us discussing that, well, 2 guys on discussing that's Lucas Simmons and Jonathan Daniels. I really think those 2 guys is really big. It's a really big season for them as far as showing promise and continuing to develop. Lucas Simmons is going to his 3rd year within the program. He was a blue chip offensive tackle, has a prototypical size, hasn't put it all together just yet. Hopefully he could get developed under Herb Hand and show some promise this year and maybe lock down the key backup spot as far as the left tackle position and be a piece that we could count on in the future. So if he shows Coach Herb Hand something in regards to a development thing, and that could be something we could count on in the future. And also Jonathan Daniels, he was another 4-star kid that was out of the Pensacola area, going to be a redshirt freshman this upcoming year. He's the guy that needs to show a little bit of promise in regards to development. We count on for the future of the FSU offensive line, along with Josh Raymond and Jaelyne Matthews. So we have some pieces that can be the future of the offensive line. We're just not really sure about them. You got to have development, let Coach Herbhan get his hand on them and coach them up and kind of go from there and see where the chips may fall within the offensive line. Last thing I want to say about this position before we close out this video, we know how bad the offensive line was last year. If this group is just average, just okay, or even slightly below average, it'd be night and day better than it was last year. And I think the FSU offensive line, or offense in general, will be productive due to just having an average offensive line. I think we would be okay. With Coach Herbhan and the experience we brought in, I do have belief that the potential of this group can be pretty good. But again, we have to see it on paper and see how it produces on the actual field. And you factor that in with Gus Malzahn and how good he is with running the football. I do think we'll be productive in that field. It'd be 100% better than it was last year. I can guarantee you that. How good it will be actually, though, we'll see once the cleats hit the gridiron and the game starts. So make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel. I will hit you guys with the receiver and tight end preview coming pretty soon. Again, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Go Noles.